Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's short film deep dive panel. I'm Chris Rodriguez. I'm the writer, director, and producer of feature films like Puffing Iron and They'll Find Him in the River. And I'm very excited to speak to these filmmakers about their projects and short films just in general as a medium. So please join me in welcoming them to the virtual stage. Writer director on the Oscar qualified short film Flight 182, Rippin Sindher. Writer director on Woman Dies Alone, Angela Harvey. Director on the Oscar qualified short film Border Hopper, Nico Casavecchia.
Hi.
Writer, director, producer on Naualli, Adrian G. de la Peña. Thank you guys for being here. Excited to get
Thank
into
you.
it. You guys all had amazing films. I had the pleasure of watching them all. So the first question is just kind of for everyone. To start us off, can each of you share a bit about your project and just the general inspiration behind it? If we could start maybe with Rippin.
Flight 182 is a very personal film for me in a lot of ways. It's actually about the biggest attack before 9/11, and it's something that a lot of people don't know about that happened in 1985. And it was, a very personal story for me with my uncle that was on that flight. And I finally, after many years, really found the courage just with everything that's happening politically. I wanted to make not a political film, but a family film about humanity. And so that was the genesis for me.
I see. Yeah, and that definitely comes through. It's very cathartic. Nico, if you could go next.
Yeah, Border Hopper is inspired by real events that happened to me and my wife, Mercedes, who wrote the short with me. It started with like a very simple, mundane thing. I needed to travel abroad for work, and I was in the middle of my green card process. And so this green card limbo does not allow you to travel while you're through it, which is not a big deal because it usually should last for a few weeks. But pandemic plus Trump made those things a little bit more complicated. And so I found myself pulling from a thread that started to unravel my whole life and eventually threatened my immigration status and marriage and life in the US. So it became a whole thing. And while we were going through the experience, it was so full of twists and turns and jump scares that we started taking notes. And I think partially to cope with the experience, but also to kind of like put it in some sort of way that could turn into a film. So eventually that became Border Hopper, and it's a kind of like a stylized, exaggerated horror movie version of what happened. And we tried to tackle the subject of immigration from a more humorous point of view. It's a we say it's an immigration story of privilege. So it's important to think about it as a VAR that maybe hopefully shows the difficulties of everybody involved in the immigration bureaucracy, even when you have the resources just to go through it in the most privileged way, right? So hopefully that sets the bar for people to understand what it would mean for people less privileged than me to go through it. So yeah, that's kind of like the inspiration behind it.
Thank you. That's certainly a very unique lens to tell that story. Adrian?
Yeah. So for me, Naualli is a proof of concept short film for a feature on the same name, and basically it is a way for me to grab a cryptid from Mexico or Mesoamerica and adapt it into where I now live, which is Canada. So it's bringing those stories or bringing those elements and mixing multiple representations that the Nahual creature has and creating my own, setting it in the tough winters of Canada. And funny enough, we had a snowstorm for the shooting, and we had to adapt to that as well. Basically, it's also a way for me. It is a revenge story, but it's on both sides or both characters. And something that I like when working with characters is never just like one side or the other, but in this case, there is a lot of like emotional shades that one person will do something bad, but at the same time, they'll be going through something very emotionally grounded.
Thank you. Angela?
Yeah, I wrote Woman Dies Alone over the course of a weekend because it was 2023, the writer and actors strikes were happening. It was people were in a dark place. A lot of particularly my group of friends, were in a dark place, and we're also dealing with some grief in our circles. And so I just really wanted to something take some of our deeper fears, which death feels like one of our deepest fears, and I wanted to find the community and the safety and the humor in what's the worst thing that could happen. And so that was the genesis of it, and yeah, I'm really proud of the way that it came out.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a very emotional film. Speaking of that, this next question is for you, and then also Nico. I think this applies to your film too. Both of you guys mix in a lot of really strong emotional undercurrents in the films. How do you ensure that the emotion feels grounded and that it's not forced?
I think mine in particular, I have a lot of monologues in it. The first draft was almost more one woman show than short film. So when I wrote it, I knew I had to cast Veritas, like, just because she, and not to push my writing and directing duties onto the actor, but she's such an incredible actor who's so grounded that I told myself if Berta no, I wasn't going to make the film. Just because I know, sure, we could take time and audition and find that voice, but I was under a little bit of a time crunch. And so, fortunately for me, Barrett said yes. I will say, on the page, it's so important to dodge the exact thing. Um, it gets very treacly when people are saying exactly, even though in my script I'm very close to that line, which I think is why I needed to lean so heavily on Barrett.
What do you mean by that when you say it? Do you mean like in terms of like exposition or like what the character is feeling, or what do you mean when you say dodge the exact thing?
Partly in what the character is feeling, but also in the thing that you're trying to say as the filmmaker and as the
Right.
writer. You have to leave space for people to find what it is they are going to pull out of it versus exactly what you want to say.
Gotcha. Nico?
Yeah, just to piggyback of what Angela was saying, I think it starts with casting. There's no way around it. Like if you don't have great actors that can deliver this really weird scenarios in way that feels grounded, there's, no writing will save you. I was very lucky to count with the help of Gabriela Ortega, who's the protagonist of the short. She's an amazing actor and a director on her own right, writer director, and Santiago McAllister, who did this amazing job. And then on set, I think what you do, you try to always ground the experience of the characters in something real, even if those circumstances are absurd. What I like, and this is a tonal decision, and I guess perhaps the most difficult thing in filmmaking, in my experience, is to find the tone because you find it. You don't really, I mean, you have an intuition of what it will be on the page, but then eventually you have to be on set, you have to work with actors and find it together. And what I like from absurd circumstances is to really ground them. And this is a choice, aesthetical choice, is to say, all right, how would a person really react to this outrageous situation that is surreal or absurd in my case, and really do it in a way that feels naturalistic, right? Same way you want to play comedy in a very dramatic way, uh, just to make the point. So I guess that's the process. I think it starts with casting and then evolves in set with the work with the actors.
Yeah. You really feel that, especially whenever they're picking up the candy, whenever it appears, it feels very grounded, even though it's this sort of absurd thing that's happening. Um, Adrian, this next one's for you. How do you build dread efficiently with such a short runtime? And why did you pick horror as like a guiding genre for the film?
So to answer the second one first, as you can see behind me, I'm just a horror fan, and that's something that I've always liked, or a space that I've always liked to play around. And something that I truly believe is that the horror genre allows you to speak about certain topics or certain themes that are perhaps very difficult to speak about in just like any regular scenario. But then it's sort of like you mix those themes within a horror lens, and it suddenly turns into a very grounded or a little bit more robust, entertaining piece as well. So yeah, I love horror, and I love how horror, like, you can use horror to speak about things, and not letting the audience see those things in their faces at first. On the other hand, like building dread, something that I had a challenge with in this project. Runtime is 6 minutes currently, but the first draft of the short was 12 pages. And since it is a proof of concept short, then you have a full feature script that you want to condense onto a short. Obviously, first it was like, what do I do? What scenes do I pick? Do I write something completely different to try and share all these elements? And then you have like a gazillion characters on the first draft of your short film, and a bunch of elements that little by little, every draft, I was just like, okay, maybe we don't need this character. And it doesn't matter that that character exists in the feature. It's just the concept of what the antagonists of this story are. But for me, something that was very important is to not make it like a scary horror type of story, but rather having that heartwarming element to it, especially with the creature, the Nahual. This is not a monster that will go, well, spoiler alert, there's lots of killings on the feature film version, but it is also a protective creature. And that was my main element that I wanted to communicate with this short film. And the basis of it is more like tying it out in this simple revenge story. A grieving father kills someone out of just vengeance, and then that awakens the Nahual, and we have the ending of the short film there, right? But I wanted to incorporate all the other elements of the feature, so then there is a couple of dialogues here and there. And to answer the first question, I sidetracked a little bit, but like how to build dread. For a short film, I thought of starting strong. So we have that just like long shot, and suddenly that killing. Nobody's expecting that, or at least that's what I think. And that helped set the tone for the full piece. But then we go into this other side where when we're with the father, and just like his grief as well. So then you connect a little bit more with that character. That, at least in my opinion, creates a connection with the characters that you can then feel for them, whatever's happening. And the whole setting, that's another element that helps create this dread. We were shooting at minus 30 Celsius, so definitely the actors were feeling it, which is great. Like, they had frost in their beard, and that was real. And but yeah, we overcame those challenges, but at the same time creates this cold, rough setting. We shot all exteriors, or mostly exteriors as well, so that in itself just creates a great setting that you wouldn't be able to create in a studio or something else.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the posters behind you because immediately I saw the thing and that I see the aesthetic, you know. I know you said that snowstorm was by accident though, right? That wasn't or was it always snowy like that?
On the script, it was fall just because cliche horrors. That's what we gravitate always. But all the elements aligned to be shot in March 2024. And we had people coming from Mexico. We had people coming from Toronto. I live in Calgary, and the location I had already paid for, and suddenly getting closer to the date, then this minus 30 4-day snowstorm forecast was there, and we are like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Everybody's cool. I now own a ice fishing tent as well,
Oh,
just
wow.
because of the shoot, but it
I
saved
love
us.
those types of stories from production.
And
Um,
we had to change wardrobe on the day. It was either changing wardrobe or risk of frostbite.
yeah.
Easy choice.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you for
and
choosing the right one.
yeah, and but I think it's also part of the just like happy accidents. I feel that
Mm,
all those happy accidents make the project what it is. When I
mm,
was in the festival run, people will approach to me and say that they loved that the setting was winter.
mhm.
Of course, I was like, of course, that was all planned, but maybe the short during fall would have just been made a little bit just like one of the bunch instead of just like having that differentiation. And thinking about it, it's more like my lived experience having like I'm from Mexico, and then 9 years ago I decided to move to Canada, and now we live in this harsh winter place. So it's also like that, like my experience living here.
Right. Love that. Rippin, this next one's for you. I know you mentioned Flight 182 is based on obviously a true story and it's tied to your family history.
Mhm.
What conversations did you have with any survivors or families? How did that influence the story and the way you told the story?
Yeah, I mean, this film was very, very ambitious to make, and I think on top of that, I felt such a deep responsibility to the truth. I do come from a
Mhm.
sociology background, a lot of documentary work. This is, my sixth film into the short circuit. But it was done in 2.5 days with $25,000, and it's a period piece. And so,
Mhm.
you know, in order to first even think about how I was going to tackle it, I needed to know what this story was, because this story is so big. And this is also, the starting point for a feature script. So it's a concept for that. But I really wanted to focus on the human angle. And to do that, it requires so much research, because I think what this issue has always been is so polarized. People don't really want to talk about it or tackle it. My film is one of the first to really be about this subject matter in the narrative form. And so, with that, being able to lean onto my family who had all of these records, and there's actually a book of remembrance that was given to all of the victims' families. And in it, there is a description of each person that really was on that flight when it went down in the Atlantic Ocean. And so, as you can imagine, when you're putting all of yourself as a filmmaker into something that you love, and you have this social responsibility to the work, it really stretched me in so many ways, because I felt like, yes, there were creative liberties taken in the decision making, but as the leader and as the director, I also was wanting to make sure that I really knew this inside and out. And by the, I really think that there is a pulse that has carried this film, because it was done in the grassroots. I leaned on my community, the things that I didn't know. Um, I was really able to get access from scholars and academia. And it's so interesting to me that even though I've lived with this film idea for so long, I found the courage to make it. And this is the 40th anniversary year of the true tragedy. So back
Mhm.
in earlier this year, I was invited to a conference where all of the families gathered, and to be able to bring a piece of filmmaking into that space where you see real lives, real impact, my family included. You see scholars really talking about this is memory justice. It's so important. Really, it's always, I think that's been my biggest driving force is why doesn't the world know, or why doesn't the world care? And maybe it's not for those reasons of not caring, but there is a relationship to underreporting in media, and why I feel such a strong responsibility as a filmmaker, and why I even make cinema for social change. It's such a deep, deep part of my life. So that's really where this came from.
Thank you. Um, okay, this next one's for everyone. So short films are all about structural precision, right? How do you determine what has to stay in the film and what needs to be left out in order to maintain the clarity and the impact? I know, Adrian, you talked a little bit about this. Um, but yeah, why don't we start maybe with Angela?
Yeah, I think that short films rise and fall on your main character. And so I think point of view is really the strongest thing that you can rely on to make sure that you're staying efficient, but also leaning in as much as you can to pack the biggest punch. The point of view of your main character, and also the efficiency to like the twist. I think um, most short films have a really good twist, and so supporting that while hiding it is the other key.
Mhm. Great. Nico?
Yeah, you stole all my ideas, Angela. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
The twist, though, is my angle. No, I think that the first thing you're tempted to do when you work on on a short, you see what I said, featured. It's because I think we all think of our careers as feature filmmakers. Like we all love the idea of doing features. That's a medium that is very expressive, allows for so much freedom compared to shorts. I think shorts are an exercise in restraint.
Mm,
And so when you tackle a short, I think the best way to do it is to say, all right, well, let's pay homage to the short format, which has nothing to do with a feature format, right? Especially dangerous when your eye is on and adapting this into a feature or having like a proof of concept. I think the first thing you gotta remind yourself is, okay, for this to work, it has to like speak the language of shorts. And I think Angela was pointing out a very important things, right? Point of view. You said that. You said twist. I think, yeah, like it's a situation that usually I think, and I always break this rule. The first thing I do is not follow my own rule, but I think this is a situation, right? That it may be a consistency of time, right? When we consider a scene, right? Like a situation has a consistency of time with a twist. If you start adding more changes of time, you have to tread delicately because you can risk losing effectiveness on the narration. I think that you got to make the best short you can do, and that comes with limitations, and you have to play to those limitations in the writing uh, if you want to succeed and have something special. That's so I try to force myself to think that way when I'm thinking of shorts.
Yeah.
Runtime is very important. If you want to get programmed, you got to do less than 15 minutes or you got to be very good. If you're 20, 25, you got to be excellent because programmers have slots. Of course, a short is a festival, right? A short needs a
right.
festival to be seen. It doesn't have distribution. It doesn't have, or at least not widely. So you want to make sure that you make the life of programmers easy to fit in your slot and you have odd times and things like that. So.
Gotcha. Adrian?
So to continue off of Angela's and Nico's things, I think it's I served as a juror this year and I learned so much by doing that. So obviously runtime is one. The second one, simplicity. I would encompass it in simplicity. I also am guilty of what Nico said. Of like we all want to get into features, and then we're writing our short, thinking of the features. So suddenly we have all these themes, all these elements that we want to do, and you're watching shorts that you're 6 minutes in, 10 minutes in, and it's just introductions or character development, and it doesn't get to anything. I did once a short, a proof of concept short years ago, and it was 18 minutes, and it started around the minute 10. Obviously, that didn't get selected because of runtime and the script as well. So simplicity is one thing, and the experience of watching, which I think it's if I would have if I would give an advice to people trying to decode or find the way of succeeding at festivals, think of the experience of watching a short film. Some shorts
Mm.
are so simple, but such a great, enjoyable time watching it, and it's not like groundbreaking or anything, but it's such a great experience of watching that they get selected in all of them. And I can say with Naualli, for example, I I was hoping for more selections, obviously, but I understand that by having all these other themes and elements that tie onto the feature, some people either didn't get it or it was so subtle that it wasn't like a like a fulfilling experience of watching for them as well.
Mm.
So yeah, find find a way to make it stylish and a great viewing experience and simplicity in terms of like rich characters, focusing on one, and that could definitely get your short on the other side.
Thank you. Rippin?
Uh, yeah, so the question is with shorts and structure, right? I think really what Angela, Nico, and Adrian have said to echo that like the mindset of a short when from scripting phase for me is really I'm not trying to make it the feature. I'm trying to be as concise and as tactful of building scene on scene on scene and still having an emotional arc that's gratifying for an audience. And so I think, like everyone has said, it's you don't have the real estate and the time. So your inciting incident just has to be right off the bat. And in most cases, obviously there's ones that don't do that. And so, in my personal experience, I did something that I hadn't done before, which is I was like, I'm doing 10 pages because I actually had to submit it for a grant. And I really held myself to those 10 pages. And I think sometimes having restriction in the page count actually allows you to be innovative to say, hey, what do I really need? What does really matter? And obviously, those 10 pages get stretched when you get into production. My other advice would be, to people with shorts is that I think I've come off of seeing what doesn't work in my past work and what does. And those are all beautiful growing experiences because sometimes I've tried these really ambitious storylines with certain kind of intercuts and past and present in previous work, and it lived and it's beautiful. But I think coming off of that film, I was like, okay, I just really reframed my relationship to short films, because not every short film is going to lend itself to a feature and vice versa. And so the thought process and the relationship to the short, I actually really like went into a granular phase of like, okay, how do you actually build a short? What does it really need? And then how do you put your own sauce onto it? And so that my relationship to making Flight 182 is very different than anything I've done before because having the 10 page count, I had to be really creative. So my relationship with I started in my prep period relying on my relationship with my sound team. Okay, I'm gonna need to be really creative with how I move these scenes because that's how I want to write them. What do you think? Or with my editor that I've worked with before, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think this cut would work? Because I literally have X amount of pages and I don't have the luxury of another scene. And it really stretches you, as we all can relate, right? Like shorts are so beautiful because they push you as a writer and a director, but really as a producer. And if you can know how to produce, then you kind of know what your limitations in the writing and directing phase are.
I love that. I think that that's certainly a trademark of a great director, really leaning in on the expertise of the people on your team. It's very important. The next question is for Nico. You do this really amazing thing in your film where you mix live action and animation. Um, how did you decide on doing that with such a personal immigration story? And did that like impact your directing style?
Well, I think the first thing you need to know is my voice as a filmmaker has always been tied to this mixed media approach. I grew up, I'm a self-taught filmmaker. My first film was in a webcam, and I quickly learned that I wanted to touch all the different ways of expressing the stories that I wanted to work on with different mediums. So from like many years ago, I started mixing up things, and I found that sometimes having the ability to mix different mediums gets you quicker into it gives you a lot of insight into subjectivity of character, right? Like it allows you to go into a very stylized or expressive way on how the characters are feeling in a more visual way than just straight live action. So I've done it before, and I think I'm naturally inclined to do it. And in this particular story, I thought it was perfect because, of course, at the core of the film is this idea of immigration as a video game, right? Which is inspired by this Henry Rollins, the punk rocker quote. It's a quote that kind of flashed in my brain ever since I heard it. That is, America is not a place you live in; it's a video game you survive. And it felt, um, it really felt like my experience with immigration. I've been an immigrant all my life, so I'm from Argentina, but I migrated to Spain when I was like 19 years old. So I went through this, European bureaucracy, and then in a less precarious way in the American immigration bureaucracy. And it felt like a video game. When you have a visual theme, or you have a kind of like something that can express visually something in your film, like you hold in to that to dear life, because that's what every filmmaker wants, right? Like something that conveys this feeling without really having to do too much exposition. So immediately, okay, video games, right? Like it allows you to create a world, and so the short started that way. Because I guess the last thing I would say about this kind of thing is it's very important to be intentional and conceptual about the way you use different techniques independent of animation, right? But to tell a story, I'm very cautious of not putting cream on top of the cake just so I can dress it. I try to be okay. Is this justified? Can this communicate feelings and ideas in a way that will get us quicker to the audience? And I felt that it was justified in this case, so we went for it, and it was a great experience, and I think something that people connects with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Angela, Woman Dies Alone explores loneliness and existential tension in a very intimate space. How does working in short form shape the way you explore these themes of isolation and emotional immediacy?
Yeah, the thing that's so beautiful about shorts is it kind of gets to what Rippin was talking about in terms of production is you you're limited on budget, you're limited on time, you're limited in so many ways, and to me that is almost like the pressure that creates the diamond. I have worked in television for a long time. So it's a lot of voices, a lot of money, a lot of opinions, ideas. And so what tends to get left behind sometimes is that true core of emotion.
Hmm.
So short film is it's so great because whatever you're feeling, be that a frustration or a fear or a joy, it boils down into the essence of the thing. And my favorite part of film festivals was the shorts blocks because it's so fun to come see what are people thinking about this year, what are they talking about, what is bubbling up on the inside, and it will come out in a short film. So that's my favorite thing about the medium.
So, okay, this next one is both for Rippin and for Adrian. How do your cultural backgrounds and personal histories shape the way you tell stories, especially with your short films?
Something that I decided on doing since starting my production company here was to, and this might change for later, but for now, it's trying to have that representation of Latino voices either in front or behind the camera or in the stories. Sometimes some projects might allow for that in terms of like the scripts, but on one side it's like being an immigrant here and just like being distant from Mexico and my idea of what it was to live there, and now everything changed and now I live here. So it's like it's that form of trying to keep my connection to being Latino. It is basically either the collaboration with other crew members, and that might be just a silly thing, but we then have the same jokes, have the same backgrounds, or something like that, right? Musical taste.
Even just the way I feel like you approach the story, whether or
Hmm.
not you're talking about something specifically cultural or not,
Hmm.
it influences your perspective on family and relationships and whatnot.
Exactly. And on that end, actually, like the sensitivities that our upbringing gives us, it's completely different from people or from people that I work with in Canada. Like my childhood was different from theirs, so their vision to whatever we're creating, it's completely different. And I love that because then it enriches the experience of creating. And yeah, just like how, for example, what the meaning of family is for Mexican or Latinos is completely different to what the experience is in Canada as well. So then the dynamics on characters that I write will be very different as well. And I think that's another great thing of just like this cross-cultural collaborations, because then we create something different rather than, well, in Mexico we were the U.S. backyard uh, in terms of film. So you see a lot of, or before you see a lot of films just trying to replicate whatever Hollywood was doing, and that was not so nice to see. But then when people started like taking ownership of who we are and doing that on the screen, then those stories are way better.
Ribbon?
Yeah, and for me, I grew up in a really small farm town in California. And, my parents are immigrants from Punjab, India. And so my upbringing was really around the Sikh faith and, being a South Asian woman, like the idea of filmmaking, it's so ironic, felt so far away, even though there was, global cinema, there was Indian cinema we would watch. But this idea of pursuing story and in the way that is our lived experience was so rare. I mean, it was always this Western narrative with, certain race and certain color of your skin. And so as a young kid, I bought into that idea because that's all you kind of knew for so long. I think it wasn't until I got to UCLA and I was studying sociology that I thought, oh my goodness, our stories do matter, even though people don't say that they do or don't think that they do. Um, and even in this entertainment landscape, too often they think it's high risk, it's not worth it or whatnot. And I feel that I've always tried to stay true to myself. Like, it is important. It is important for younger people and the next generation to see that people like Angela, Nico, Adrian, myself, you, Chris, like we can make films and they matter. And so I'm really fueled by that. And I made a conscious effort to make this film in predominantly the mother language of
Mhm.
Punjabi. And, at one point I wrestled like, oh, is this going to take away from global audiences or not? But I thought, no, like that is me. What an opportunity to bring a cast of five South Asian leads in this space, to use the mother language and to be really authentic to myself. Because ultimately, the genesis of a film for me is I start with what do I want to see? What is a reflection of me? And then I allow people to receive that in the way that feels comfortable for them. And I kind of had this moment because it's not really about this shiny trophy or these festival awards and all this stuff. Like what I've learned in the process of making this film and taking it out into the circuit unconventionally is that people want to see themselves. People want to explore different cultures. And I've always used that as an instrument against otherism. I think it's so important. And to now be one of the first ever Punjabi Sikh women to be qualified in this Oscars category. To me, that's like being able to show little girls, I never had that at the time, but to be able to show little girls, like, you can do it. You can be all the things you want to be unapologetically. And I don't know, that really excites me.
As it should. Adrian, did you want to add something?
Yes, something that I wanted to add is that while listening to Ripping, it reminded me that movies are as well a way to get to know other cultures,
Mhm.
and that it's a huge power, similar to what horror and certain themes. You bring these stories, but you set them in under your own world. But looking at these movies then has given me the chance to get to know other cultures in a more genuine way. And it's also a way to battle the, like you mentioned, otherism or racism, because obviously a certain group of people will portray Latinos as always the drug lords. And don't get me wrong, those Latino drug lords exist, but we're more than that. So then doing those stories, introducing like what it is to live in Mexico City, what it is to be a Latino in Canada, like those, I really do believe that being genuine to voice POV and then sharing those stories that are just like universal. They don't have to be a Latino about being a Latino, right?
Mhm.
It's just like drama. So then introducing these stories to the general audience allows for better understanding and more richness about other cultures as well.
Absolutely. Okay, this next one's for everyone. Short films often serve as a very powerful artistic statement on their own, but as we've talked about a little bit, they can also be springboards for larger projects. Um, what role does this current short film play in your creative future? Nico, if you want to start off. Oh,
Here, I
um,
think, I don't know,
you're good.
maybe
You're good.
I was just saying, I want to be pessimistic here. There's something very real that we need to understand, which is, we're going through a very, very hard time in the film industry. And what we call the short film to feature pipeline is extremely rare, and I would say broken. Not for everyone. There are exceptions, and those exceptions to the rule are more, I think, rare to find nowadays. But so I think, when you think about like creating something with the purpose of doing something else, which I'm guilty of doing all the time, being calculative about your career, thinking you're making this so you can make something else, we need to remind ourselves that, this is it. This is what is happening right now. And I'm telling all these things to myself. There's sometimes no amount of success that will bring you that hope for doing something else. So you gotta stay in the moment. You gotta do the things that you want to create with the purpose of actually getting them done and then expressing them and sharing them with an audience, right? Because in my experience, it's been so hard. No matter the achievement that you get with the short, the credentials that you have, nothing seems to be enough. There's a devaluation of what the bar that you need to clear to create something. Partially because of all the hurdles that we describe in terms of horror stories being not maybe officially taken as commercial or being considered too risky, but also because I think mainly cinema is not going to be the hegemonic entertainment medium moving forward, and we need to see that at face value and start humbling ourselves and saying, right, do I really want to do film? And if I want to do film, can I do it independently of my hope of making even a living? I know what I'm saying is very harsh, but it's something that I face myself with every day. Like to say, right, do I love this enough that if I do this short, it's because I really want to do the short. And of course, you're going to do something else with it, or is it that I'm hoping to get something else out of it? Because there are tough times right now.
Angela?
Nico is right. Nico is right
Fun.
despite. However, I also know that, if the power grid collapsed tomorrow, we would be sitting around campfires telling each other stories, and probably long form stories. So while the monetization model is currently broken, some other model will appear. Will it appear in fast enough for us to make a living at what we love to do? I don't know, but I hope so. I have to believe so, because I don't know how to do anything else. I put all my eggs in this basket, and like I tried teaching. I don't like it. So, we'll see what's next. I will say I would love to turn Woman Dies Alone into a horror feature. But I have not started writing that script because I'm writing things that will hopefully pay me a lot faster. So it's not gone, but I'm not leaning on it, to Nico's point. I'm not,
Mhm.
it's a long shot, and everything is a long shot right now in the industry, but you miss 100% of the swings you don't take. So,
I would just say, it's like what I said. I hope it's not a bummer. What I'm saying is like it's an invitation to enjoy the process and to value what the things that we've done, because those are value. They have a lot of value and the intrinsic value on their own beyond whatever they become. Right. I hope my message was not
Yeah, I think if I
misconstrued.
could just jump in here, I think that there's this idea that we must figure out how to marry art with commerce, and that never used to really be the job of
right.
you could be a singular like writer, director, and like the pipeline and the ecosystem was built in a way where you would have support and you would kind of know the steps of where you're going. And I do think that that's completely shifted. Like Angela, like you were saying as well. I think what it does is I kind of look at it like this. There's no step, you do this step, this step, this step, because there is no really a blueprint for that. It's like, how long are you willing to emotionally labor with a work that speaks to you? And that could literally be like, and if that thing hits the market right now, when the market's like, oh, we really want this thing, then it's like, great, okay, that's an overnight success, but truly it's not, because you've labored with that thing for so long and it hit, or it hit the market when the market wanted it. I think there's a business component that not enough people talk about. And I think that it's everything, it's figuring out, okay, it's not enough to make a great project. It's not enough. It's how do you then brand that project? How is that brand, the psychology of that, like how do you get the audience? How do they feel emotional? It's like so many layers. And I've just really reframed my own process. Like it took me 3 years to, actually more than that, because I had a few other years when I wrote it. But 3 years from literally like making the film to now getting it to this stage where it's running this campaign. But at the same time, I think I've really positioned myself. I've learned from mistakes, and I'm like, okay, if I have this short that's running in this way, the feature is already scripted and getting attraction, so it makes you more viable coming. And there's no telling. because people will always have their opinion about what it is. But there's just such a conscious effort of, okay, I always look at it like, okay, this project, it could probably hit off of momentum soon, or it could be X amount of years, but am I going to commit to this as my sort of dream house? I look at it like that, like all the money that I'm investing or building and the steps taking, but it's not that. Like laterally, there's two, three, four other projects I have to see. But I completely agree with everything that's being said. It is a little disheartening in some ways that we can't just do the thing. The thing isn't the thing. Like it's not just that professional. You've got to kind of be everything to then be good at that thing.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Adrian,
Yeah.
did you have something you want to add?
Well, like I agree with all of you, and also I feel I do feel that dread of that like from what Nico said, and in before it was like, yeah, your short film, it's a calling card and that will get you somewhere, but now it just feels more like you have a catch 22 for every single thing that you want to be doing. Like if you want to do a feature, you don't you like short film is not enough, you need to have done a feature before that. You're like, okay. If you want to direct TV, you need to have a directed TV before. You're like, okay. You want to do commercials, same thing. And just similar to Angela, I have put all my faith in this career. Like I have taught at a university. I did enjoy it actually, but uh, but yeah, like the I feel that definitely what Rippin said is that the business side is important, and it's for me it's like sadly the filter that separates what like the people that make it and the people that don't make it. Someone that naively thinks that for the short film alone will get somewhere. At You need to see short films more as a tool. On one side, obviously sharing what you're capable of and like what's your vision, and obviously consider it as a screwing something that it's 1 day of filming rather than 30 days. And on the other side, the way that I see short film is the everything is about connections and about your network and being present in the room. So the short film is what gets you in the room. Then you need to have a mix between your networking and your some sort of luck as well, because you will never be in the same room as certain people, but you may be in the same room at the same time. So it's building that sort of strategy. And if you I'm in that space right now. Like I did Naualli last year. I went to festivals, but now we're 1 year and a half later, or almost 2 years. So I'm like, well, I was in the room, but then the traction that I thought I was going to have didn't happen. So working more onto okay, what's next, and just keep on going and keep on going and being present at markets, at festivals, and just expanding network. And yeah, I think it's the grind, and like Rippin said, the passion. How 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 willing are you to keep going
Yeah. I just
while
want to
figuring out
I
rent?
want to echo off of what you're saying too. It's like there there's a level of surrendering to it, I think on a spiritual phase. I don't know about all of you, but I felt like especially with this project, it was like so hard to explain to people why it was important from the jump, or like these typical institutions or programs. It was like I have a pile of no's and rejections, just folders of things, but on the other side of it, there were so many beautiful openings. But what I think I've learned for what it's worth is like you find those moments when they're really truly meant to be in alignment for you. Like you're ready and all of that. But like I only share this for that. Like Ridley Scott recently just came onto my film, but it wasn't just something that happened overnight. I'm not born in this business. It's not something like that. But it's the series of no's and then really shifting like, no, I believe in this. This is going to happen. Let's look at the branding. Let's look at this. So every time you're building off of conversations and people come on that path, as we all know, there are these champions, and these champions become so important to really seeing the work and then building off of that, and so on and so forth. There's no telling what that ultimately means, but it's just I don't know, for me it's just been a life lesson of like, I, I don't really, you know, give a crap about what other people think anymore. It's really like, okay, if you don't love it now, that's fine. It might take me a few years to do it that way, but instead of like, instead of looking at the business as this hierarchy, and because there's so many gatekeepers, I just went back to my social work and sociology grassroots. Like, man, I'm going to look to left and right. You break the system by really building community and finding where you want to be accepted, and what value you add.
Absolutely. And I don't think you guys, I don't think we should discount just the experience of making it, you know? Like, I think that, at least for me, every time I am able to direct a scene, it's an opportunity to improve on the last thing I directed, or, you know, and then even if that specific short isn't going to go on to become a feature, it can serve as a helpful pitch material in saying, like, oh, I can direct this type of scene for this other type of project, right?
But if I might, I know we're running short on time, but I do want to kind of underscore Nico's point earlier about the short existing for the short and for the art
Mhm.
to stand on its own feet. I did just wrapped production like week before last on my next short. I didn't direct, I co-wrote and produced, but I'm so happy with the footage. I just think it's gonna be gorgeous, and you know, I don't know that I'll ever, no matter what success may or may not come, I don't know that I would ever stop making short films. So
I love that.
yeah,
All right.
short stands
Well,
alone.
thank you guys so much. It looks like we're out of time. Thank you to all of our panelists, Ribbon, Angela, Nico, Adrian. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you for being here. You had amazing films, incredible work. And also thank you to Impact 24 PR for putting this panel together, and for all of you for watching. So we'll see you all at the next one. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, everyone.